Sarah Hay with Bob Clemens International, and I have my friend Adam Dennis here with Surge Metrics. And today we're going to talk about how to take control of your online presence. So if you are here for the trapeze artist class, you're in the wrong place, but we would still love to have you. We really would. But today, as we have this conversation, I want to go over a few quick things before we get started. Number one, let's go through some housekeeping. Adam, while we never in a million years expect that we're going to get disconnected from our friends here, sometimes technology has a mind of its own. So if we get disconnected, everybody just go back to that Zoom link in your email, re-click on it, and we will be back as soon as we possibly can. Secondly, we're trying something new today, something I have never done before, Adam, which is always a really exciting thing to do. But on every screen, you are going to see a QR code. And we know this topic can become like very specific to you and your needs. And so Adam and I, if you scan the QR code, you will have access to my calendar and Adam's calendar, like actual access to our calendars. And so if you want to talk more about one of the things that we talk about specifically, scan the QR code and get on our calendar, because we know that everybody's situation is a little bit different and unique. So we wanted to just try that. This may be a terrible idea, Adam, and we'll never do it again, but it may be great. We don't really know. So we have that available as well as we go through this. So Adam, I want to introduce you for just a second, because I know there's a good group on here that I've gotten to meet before, but I want to introduce you and give a little bit background on what you're doing. So our worlds collided probably about a year ago now. We had just started a marketing program. We piloted a marketing program internally at Bob Clemens International. And we had said, like, we had all these dealers coming to us and they were like, oh my gosh, I wish somebody who actually understood the industry could help us with marketing. And we we're like, well, we can try. And so we opened up this like pilot marketing program probably a year ago now. And our focus was all about like retaining your customers that already liked you and trusted you. And one of the dealers we had in it started working with you. They said, hey, I need a new website. And they got connected with you. So our worlds collided in that moment. And man, has it been awesome to see that since, because what you and your team are doing in terms of website and online presence, man, it is something that I think the industries that we're in need so much. So Adam, give us a really like 30,000 foot view. Who are you? What's your company? What do you do? Like, give us all the information.
Yeah, that's a good lead in. So everybody, I actually come out of the auto industry. I got started in automotive back in 1999. So yeah, this beard is well earned. It was once black. It's not anymore. But yeah, I got started in auto, and we were one of the first companies that took auto dealers online. And that meant collecting their inventory. So creating inventory tools, creating lead management and customer relation tools. And I did that through 2005, sold the company in 2005. And then for many years, worked as a consultant, worked for a very large provider in the industry. And then back in 2018, I kind of got tired of the role that I was playing and started thinking about getting back into doing website work, and sort of had a different way that I wanted to approach the market from what I did last time, and got started in 2019. And so we started out again in automotive, but then as we've gone along, I imagine it's, one thing about agricultural work, automotive work, it doesn't get out of your blood once it's in your blood. I don't know, so what happened with us is we have all these relationships, and I had a friend who works for one of the major tractor OEMs, and he approached me and said, "Hey, Adam, we're having some real problems with website provision in our space. Can you guys come in and talk to dealers?" And so we did, and that was probably about a year ago, and that's what also brought us in touch with you. But the collision, I don't think we collided. We cooperated, and everybody, just to know, this is not color coordination here between the two of us. This was an accident. The green, it wasn't planned at all.
We're clearly just on the same wavelength, Adam. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened is when Sarah, Vanessa, and I started talking, we found out we had the same attitudes about customers, because our company is very customer driven, and you have companies that say that, but we've always structured. I mean, when I had my old company, it was structured to interact closely with customers, and then the new company is the same way, because you can't really do a job well if you're not interacting with the customers and finding out what their pain points are. So anyhow, now we're in this space, and I have to tell you, it's a much more enjoyable space in many ways, because in the automotive space, they're all jaded in a lot of cases because there've been
Yeah.
so many buyouts and all these things going on in the automotive space. Coming to this space where a lot of cases you're working with family-run businesses,
Mhm.
it's a totally different dynamic. And for us, we're absolutely loving it. So
I love
yeah, I
it.
mean, it's
Well,
been around for a while. I earned my grays.
yeah. Hey, well, it's been fun. It's been fun to get to see you firsthand working with some of the dealers that we work with and seeing that all come through. So, all right. Well, I say, let's kick this off. Like, people are here because they want to know, Adam. First off, I'm pretty sure, and put this in the chat, okay? Just yes or no in the chat. Did you start your dealership because you love marketing? Okay, like put it in the chat. If you are a dealership owner or manager, did you start because you love marketing? Chelsea's like, no exclamation point. Right? Like, Adam, nobody started the business because they were like, I can't wait to wake up every day and do marketing. Let's go. Much less have to keep, Jesse's like, absolutely not. Much less have to keep up with the changing rules and regulations and different tactics that I have to use and all these different companies coming at me and telling me I'm not maximizing my resources. Like, no one started the business because they did it. Most dealers we work with started the dealership because they loved what they sold. Like, they loved the product that they sold, or they loved their customers. But marketing was like that redheaded stepchild in this corner that they were like, I will deal with it if I have to deal with it, but that's the only time I want to deal with it. And so I know as we walk into this conversation today, Adam, it's not anybody's favorite conversation on here. Maybe you're my favorite conversation, but not anybody else's. And so I think that that's where we have to start from. So when we think about controlling and taking back your online presence, there's a few different big pieces that we have to think through. And the first thing comes to safeguarding your website. More often than not, as I'm sure you've had conversations, Adam, with dealers, and I've seen this firsthand too, most dealerships focus really high on like safeguarding the actual physical location. They have safety training. They have things that they have in place to make sure that customers' information inside of the dealership is kept safe. They've got things and protocols and procedures and processes to make sure that when technicians are working in the service department, they're safe. They've got insurance on all of the things physically for their dealership, but they're not viewing their website as the same level of vulnerability that their dealership is. And so, Adam, like, what are you seeing with that?
Well, there are a couple of pieces there. There's one piece is, as you and I discussed, and I think this sort of kicked off the whole reason for the presentation, was the Americans with Disabilities Act. So websites have to meet ADA requirements just like your buildings do, right?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more blurry how to meet those requirements when it comes to websites. But suffice it to say, there's some obvious things like you creating a text and background relationship where the text doesn't stand out clearly to the background is a bad idea, because if you have people who are sight impaired, they can't see too well, and particularly old people lose their ability to see differences in contrast, then you're gonna undercut what you're trying to achieve, right? So the American with Disabilities Act, there are actually tools that are used to assess if your website does well from an accessibility point of view, that if a lawyer is using those tools, and this is in the auto space, this is definitely the case, where there are lawsuits that happen because websites aren't compliant, and
Yeah.
then the dealership gets sued, and to avoid a lawsuit is small.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to risk mitigation, I have a friend that does this stuff professionally in the auto space. A lot of what you need to do to avoid risk is small. The cost of getting caught is very high because
Yeah.
nobody wants to disrupt their business or have to pay fines or anything like that. So ADA is one big thing. Another thing is there's a rule called the safeguards rule from the FTC, which is a cybersecurity issue that gets to hardening yourself and showing that you're doing certain things to make it hard for hackers to steal publicly protected information. So private information that's protected, such as name, address, social security number, stuff like that. So those are two things from just
Yeah.
from a safeguarding perspective to be compliant. You have ADA, and then you have what's called the safeguards rule. And those are
Yeah.
two big
Well,
in this space.
yeah, and I want to dive into both of those a little bit more in depth because I'm curious again in the chat, how many of you are aware that you have to be ADA compliant on your website? Just yes or no. Okay. Are you aware that your website needs to be ADA compliant? Okay. Lots of good yeses coming through.
Wow.
And I am so glad to see that because when we bring this conversation up with our dealers, most of the time they go, holy smokes, I had no idea. Or I assume, which is the worst place you possibly can be, I assume that my website provider is just taking care of it. Now here's like what's actually happening. So with the lawsuits, we have these lawyers who are out there, basically the ambulance chasers of the internet. All right, we all on there together, the ambulance chasers of the internet. And they are targeting specifically small businesses who are not ADA compliant on the website. And the first penalty that you get, for the last time I looked, the first penalty that you get is a $75,000 fine. 75 big ones. Okay, like that's crazy. And again, that's probably been a little bit ago when I checked that. So double check that information for yourself and for your business. But like, that's wild. And to Adam's point, it doesn't take a lot in order for you to become compliant. Like literally your website company can put a little widget on there to make sure that your website is compliant. But more often than not, when I'm talking to dealers, whether it's in our marketing program or something else, they have no idea that their website's compliant or not. So here's what I want you to do. And go ahead and do this right now. We're going to take 30 seconds and do this right now. I want you to go to this website. It's accessibee.com. All right. Go ahead, type that in your browser and put your website in there. It will tell you if your website is ADA compliant or not. And if it is not, reach out to your website provider today and say, what do I need to do to get to be ADA compliant? And Adam, it doesn't take a lot to become ADA compliant. Like, can you walk through some of the like basic widgets that you can put on the website to make sure that happens?
Yeah, there's actually a widget called Userway that is put out by userway.org, which is an ADA compliant widget. And what that'll do is that'll give a user the capacity to click a little button to increase the size of the text and to do a variety of other things. It even has a reader function for someone if they have real vision issues. And it's free. And actually in the automotive space, there's a company, I won't say who it is, but they charge $300 for the same widget that's actually free.
I mean, there's great margin in that, Adam. We're here for good margin, all right? As long as our dealers aren't the ones paying for it.
That's just wrong. It's a little script that you stick in the website that's available when people come in. So I mean, that's one really obvious thing. Another thing that we do is Google has some tooling to actually take a look at a website, make sure that it's compliant. And then if we have any issues that pop up, then we'll make changes to the website to be sure that it's matching the requirements that Google says. And being the 80,000-pound gorilla, it's kind of a good one to listen to.
Sure.
But yeah, those are two simple things that can be done. But userway.org is a very good tool.
Yeah, and your website provider should be able to help you with this. This is not something that the dealer has to take on themselves and figure out how to simply become ADA compliant. No, like when they partner with a good website provider, they should be the ones who are pushing them forward on that. So the other thing, Adam, that you mentioned that I want to make sure our dealers are aware of is making sure that we have safeguards in place for cybersecurity and data protection, because this is another thing that can actually hit dealers' bottom lines, like big time, if we're not paying attention to that. So would you walk through at a high level for us? What are the safeguards that dealers need to have in place when it comes to cybersecurity and data protection?
Well, this is a big thing because laws that are typically passed by the federal government can be pretty complicated.
Sure.
But let me sort of break it down in this thing. Basically what you want to do is be able to test your infrastructure to make sure it's secure. And there are a number of different services out there. Everybody here, you'll have my contact information from Sarah. So if somebody wants to call me, contact me to have me run through it more directly, I can. But long story short is you want to test to see where you have vulnerabilities. You want to test your providers, like your website. You want to test your infrastructure. And probably the most critical thing, which is often treated as the least important, is cybersecurity awareness training for your staff. And the reason there is because the vast majority of hacking that occurs starts with a person.
Hmm.
And I know this all too well because in another life, and I don't think I told you this, Sarah, but I actually run a training program in cybersecurity on the side as
Sure.
just act of passion. It's not like I don't have time in my life or I have time in my life, but we've actually participated in incident responses. And an incident response is when somebody is hacked, you come in afterwards and they say, "Hey, I've been hacked. I had this," and you come in and I try to determine whether or not there's persistence on the server. In other words, have they hacked and are they still sitting on the server trying to cause chaos? We've been through that before with my team, and it all came down to one simple thing, which was the owner of the company was targeted. She did not have multi-factor authentication on her email. Her email login was taken, and then they used that to monitor her email to get communications she had with other companies to then send a bill to a customer asking for money to be paid. And the only thing that was different was the deposit account. And they
Wow.
walked away with $300,000.
Jeez, jeez.
Yeah.
That's
So,
crazy.
so one of the things I would say is a takeaway is if anybody, you'll have my contact me about it. The short story of this is you need to do a risk assessment. There are companies that do that. It can be controlled price wise. It doesn't have to be stupidly expensive. You need a person who owns the risk assessment and making sure certain things get done, like you have an incident response plan. In other words, if you get hacked, who do you call? How do you respond? What do you need to do? You need to think that stuff through. And that can make a huge difference in between losing a ton of money and not losing money. It also
Yeah.
can have an impact upon your cybersecurity insurance that you might buy, your liability insurance, because if you have a good program in place, then it's going to cost less. If you don't have a good program in place, it's going to cost more. And that's really the track in the insurance right now with cybersecurity insurance is it's getting more expensive when you don't have anything in place. So,
Sure. Yeah.
but I will say the one most critical thing is have multi-factor authentication on your email, right? And don't use text for phone because, and I can go into it another time, it's not really relevant, but it's pretty easy to hack your phone,
Yeah.
under certain circumstances. And having it go to your phone itself as a text, problem. Having it go to something like Google Authenticator, much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's an issue there.
So
There's some simple things you can do.
yeah, and again, I think when we look at the dealers that are probably on this webinar today, number one, let's make sure that we have insurance for cybersecurity. Now, you may be like, "Oh my God, Sarah, another insurance. Does my insurance person even know how to do this?" Again, this is a great place to reach out to a professional about this and figure this out because we get that oftentimes the dealers we're talking to have, like, you as the owner are maybe the sales manager, the IT professional, and you're just trying to make payroll. Okay. So I get that there's a lot of different pieces on this. And so as the business owner, find the resources like Adam or reach out to other resources in the area where you say, okay, help me understand, number one, what kind of insurance do I actually need? And then number two, what are those like checks and balances? I think over the last year and a half, there's been some information in the news about a pretty big business management software that went through a
Oh,
massive
CDK.
hack, and there was some ripple effects of that. And so it's happening in our industry. Like it's happening in this space. And I just want to make sure that you don't get in a place where you get caught with this and it's costing you at your bottom line. All right. So then the third thing I need you to keep in mind when we're talking about your online presence and making sure that you are in control of it is we need to look at who actually owns your website and what your contract says. Okay. As we've been working with dealerships over the last year in our pilot program, one of the things that has probably been the most jarring to me is understanding that for many dealerships, you do not actually own any of the customer information coming off of your website or the actual content on your website. Okay. You don't own it. Or even some of the Google connections that are happening, like software companies out there who are not trying to stay above board with dealers are sitting here saying, we own your customer information, we own your content, and you just get to pay for the presence of us in your life. And it's just going to get more and more expensive. And the trick about this is that often what I'm seeing for many dealers is that the contracts that are happening for these dealers, Adam, they're sitting here going, okay, you're going to sign up for a year with us, which is great, warm, fuzzy. I don't do contracts at our company, and I don't think you guys do either, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But they say, okay, we're going to sign up for a year contract. And then a few months later, your phone rings and they say, hey, do you want to add XYZ on your website? And what starts happening is your contract gets extended for this product. So it's really, really hard to get out of it. One of the dealers in our program, as we were trying to get them out of a contract like this, ended up having to pay over $4,000 to get out of their contract so that they could move over. I think they moved over to you, Adam. I think they moved over to Surge Metrics, but it's just wild. It's just wild to me when I'm seeing what's happening with website providers right now who are taking dealers and locking them into situations which are not fair. They're in a lot of ways predatory to the dealers and their businesses. And so, Adam, when we look at, again, just give me like 1 or 2 points on this, but when we look at websites and what contracts should look like or could look like in websites, what's a question or two that these dealers should be asking their website providers?
Why do I have a year-long contract? I mean, it's
Right, right.
it's very uncommon in automotive now. And I go back to actually 99 starting in automotive. And early on, that was very common. It's much less common now. And
Mhm.
it's more of a month-to-month attitude. A lot of times there might be a short beginning contract, like 2, 3, 4 months, and then it's month-to-month rollover after that. So if a dealer wants to cancel, they can cancel, right? So I think, very simply is like, why should I be in an annual contract? Because it comes down to is the vendor doing their job every day to make you want to stay with them? If they are, then you're going to want to stay with them. So there's no need for a long contract.
Right.
Having a little short contract at the beginning is common because from the vendor's point of view, you kind of have costs up front that you might do. And so you want to make sure you're covered. But once that's done, no, you got to earn your contract every month by doing a good job.
Yeah.
So I think it's no more complicated than just asking why,
Yeah. Well, and I know we both have the same mentality inside of our organization, regardless of the product. Like we have month-to-month contracts on everything because we feel like if we're not bringing you value, you should not be paying us, like fundamentally. And I know that with you guys, as you're looking at it, you do have a small one just to make sure you can recoup costs at the beginning, but then you view it as earning dealers business every single month too. So I think it's an important thing. Why? Like, why in the world do I actually have to have a year-long contract in the midst of this? So I think that's good. All right. So the next section of things that I want to talk about when we're talking about taking control of your online presence is I want to talk about turning your existing list into a gold mine. Now, in our marketing program that we've started, our entire focus is re-engaging customers who already like you, trust you, and have spent money with you. Okay. Like that's the entire focus because we know it costs 5 times more to bring on a brand new customer than it does to re-engage an existing customer. So if our marketing budget for the month is $1,000, we can, if we wanted to go after new customers, we would have to spend $5,000 to get the same customers engaged that we would with $1,000 of our existing customers. And so we know that your existing list, when we talk about online presence, is where it's at. But we have to be strategic about the existing list in order to move the picture forward. And so one of the first things that I know we're both passionate about, Adam, is seeing mass emails that actually work. We have a dealer recently who's been in the program for a while now, and we've been sending out mass emails to her existing list. Like we've been sending this out on about a bi-weekly basis. We have a few different tools and templates we've used. We've done things from 30 days of deals in order to move interest accruing inventory. And then we've done spotlights on special products and things that we need to move, but it's always there with value, like content. So it's not just like spam, spam, spam. Like nobody wants those emails. I don't want those emails. Adam, you don't want them. Nobody wants those emails. Nobody's like, yes, another sale email where they're just trying to take my cash. No, like we bring value in it, but this dealer that we've been working with, we send over leads as quickly as we get them in from these customers who show interest, click through, and we can send those leads over to her sales team. And in the midst of this last month, we sent her over 300 sales leads from customers who already like and trust her through mass emails. 300 sales leads. She called our team the other day and said, is there any way that you guys can slow this down? Because my sales team is having a hard time keeping up with it. We're like, okay, we got the train on the track right now. There's no slowing this down,
You know who you're
but
talking
we
about.
need the sales team to keep coming up with it. But it all was generated. These 300 plus leads for her were all customers who already liked her and trusted her. And they were all generated through mass email. So they're not cold leads, but they're not hot leads, but they are definitely warm leads that can convert into sales. So when you look at mass emails, Adam, what are some of the things that you're seeing? And I know landing page conversion and where they go is a big piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. If your email talks about one thing, like let's say it's talking about a particular type of tractor and why you should, you know, why they should buy it or whatever, or a service plan for a tractor or whatever. That landing page needs to talk about that specific subject.
Yeah.
Because what happens is a lot of times people make this mistake. They'll send out this email with one subject, they'll send the people to just the home page or whatever. And when they get there, they don't know what to do. So the bounce rate, if you ever hear that expression, bounce rate means if you have a high bounce rate, that's bad. If you have a low bounce rate, that's good. That means they come with low bounce rate and they stay. The more your landing page is similar to what the email is saying, the better the bounce rate. And that to me is the most critical thing.
Yeah. And also on the landing page, we need to be sure we're collecting the information from the customers. Now, we don't want this to be like this long 72 point thing where we need like their social security number, the middle name of their firstborn child, and their first dog's name. Like we don't need all that stuff. But what are the things when we do have a landing page that we need to make sure are on the landing page to collect the information?
That's me or everybody else?
Yeah, that's you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's to keep it simple. Name, address, phone, those are the most critical. Email. Those three
Absolutely.
things, and one or two other pieces of information that you can collect that's relevant to that email that you sent out. And the reason is it's quite simple. Nobody's going to waste, there's studies after studies after studies that show this. The longer the form, the less people actually participate, and the more the abandonment. So you want to keep it short, sweet, and to the point, because after all, what you want to do is you want to get them into your sales funnel and contact them right away.
Yeah.
Because it's in the contact that you get when you talk to them, that's where the selling really begins.
Exactly. Well, and again, this goes on past just like a mass email. If we're doing Google ads or anything else where we're trying to direct customers back to our website, we have to make sure the landing page is there and that it's going to the right place. Now, we have a dealer, again, that we've been working with for probably about a year now, and he was spending about $4,000 a month on Google ads. Love that for him. Okay, love that. He's an outdoor power equipment dealer, and over the course of the last few years, he's been spending that much every month. And I asked him, I said, how's it working for you? Like, how are your Google ads actually working for you? And he's like, honestly, Sarah, I just don't see very much effect from my Google ads. And I was like, okay, well, for $4,000 a month, we should be seeing something, right? Like we should be seeing, I don't think I'm a rocket scientist, but for $4,000, I would expect to see some leads from that. And he's like, I don't know. I just don't understand it. They talk over my head. Like, I just don't really know what's going on. And so that's what I'm spinning. And I said, okay, well, let me talk to him. Like, I don't know. I'm happy to talk to him. So I dive into the conversation with this company. And in this conversation, I say, okay, well, like what's going on? So they pulled up all the information and they were sending all of the Google ad leads, not to his dealership, but to a dealership in Washington that had the same name. They weren't even sending it to the right dealership website. And I was like, well, and he'd been probably doing this for 3 years, 2 or 3 years. He'd been spending $4,000 a month and the leads were going to that other dealership. And it's like, okay, I'm sure they were like, I don't know what we're doing online, but we are just killing it. And this other dealer's like, man, I'm spending $4,000 a month and not seeing anything. So landing pages go beyond our mass email, but whether we're doing Google ads or anything else, we have to be focused in on what those landing pages are and where they're going, because otherwise you could be wasting so much money in the midst of this. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about when we're talking about turning our existing list into a gold mine is I want to talk about the power of hybrid marketing. Now, when we talk about hybrid marketing, what I'm talking about here is utilizing something like direct mail plus some other sort of follow-up. And Adam, in a second, I want you to kind of walk through what that other follow-up has been effective for you. But what we're seeing is that if we send a direct mail piece, specifically, I'll give you an example on what we're doing in service with some of our dealers, is we're sending warranty promotions out to customers who have bought the unit about a year before it goes out of warranty. So let's say that we have a under 40 horsepower tractor that has a 5-year warranty on it, okay, for example. And so 3.5 years in, we would send them a postcard that says, bring your unit in for a basic maintenance, which they're gonna pay for, and get a free warranty inspection on that unit, okay? And they're like, oh my God, you're so wonderful. Thank you for that. Like, it's like this warm, fuzzy thing that's happening with the customer. And so they bring it, we put this out in the mail. Then, after we know that has been sent out, a few days later, after we know that they've got it, we either follow up with a phone call or a text message that just simply says, hey, I wanted to make sure that you got that postcard and see if we could schedule you for our warranty inspection. And you know what? We see that about 30% of the time, people actually bring their unit in for that warranty inspection. Like, how insane is that? 30% of the time they're actually bringing it in. And so the ripple effect of that is that we've got all of these customers in who we know warranty is almost up on. We know that they probably have the unit paid off, and we know the shiny, sexy new factor is just about gone. And so we can then convert them potentially into a new unit. Like, that is what we call full circle marketing inside of a dealership, where we go, okay, we know you already bought one. Let's bring you through the cycle, service, parts, sales again. And you stay in that cycle forever, boo. Like, that's what happens. And so when we look at it, though, it's this winning combination of saying, if we can take hybrid marketing, but still bring it through and make sure that it's touching our digital, whether that's through text message, making sure there's a landing page. I don't care what it is. We've got to be there. So Adam, what are you seeing for some of the best practices when it comes to like scheduling service online or having those conversations?
Yeah, you know what's funny? You mentioned something there. When you talk about follow-up or chat or anything like that, everything comes down to timing,
Mm,
right? The
yeah.
longer you delay, the greater likelihood there's going to be a negative outcome. So, and in fact, you know, various CRM solutions that are on market, and you know, you go in a lot of these tooling, this tooling that's out there that defines what is success when you're working
Mm,
with a customer. It's how quickly you respond. And in that, you respond exactly to what they're asking, not to
mhm,
what you think, but what they're asking. Now, mind you, when you get in a conversation, everybody here is a salesperson at one level. You know that you can carry the conversation where you think it needs to be, but you have to contact them about what they're asking. And you have to do it as quickly as possible, because I don't know, you know, I'm an old man here comparison to you, Sarah, but I know that online everything is impatience, impatience, impatience.
mm,
Nobody has any time to wait. So the quicker you respond, the better it is. So whether it's something to deal with, you know, servicing equipment, you want to respond quickly. You want to actually talk to them specifically about what they're asking, and then you got to figure out what that hook is that gets them to then come into your dealership. It's honestly, it's not rocket science. It's the same thing you guys have been doing for the last 30 years. It's just the difference is now you're using another platform and interface to have that interaction. And the other thing, the final thing that I would say is doing the right thing to build trust,
mm,
because trust, as everybody here knows, trust is everything in a sale. So sometimes the best thing that you can do is to be honest when you don't have something that meets that customer's immediate needs, to be honest and say, no, I don't have that. Here's my suggestion. Here's what you can do, because that trust builds loyalty.
mm.
So none of what I said is technical. All of it's human, and everybody here has that capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're exactly right. And when we get to that level of it of saying, okay, like let's respond quickly and efficiently and make sure that we are building that trust, it changes the dynamic of the relationship. And that's how we continue to grow the business, right? That's how we keep these customers buying from us over and over again. It's those little things. And you're right. Most of these dealers are already doing that. Like they're already focused on that. So that's what 3 things that we want to leave you with when it comes to turning your existing list of customers into a gold mine for your dealership. All right, and the third piece of our conversation today is all about turning your website into a salesperson. Now, again, when we look at our websites, I think that there's always this issue for many dealerships of something that we call congruency, okay? Congruency is a big issue when it comes to websites for dealerships. What I mean by congruency is this. Have you all ever been around somebody, and put this in the chat for me, yes or no? Have y'all been around somebody before and you're like, I don't know what it is about them, but I just don't like them? Have you ever been in that situation? You're like, yeah, okay, Jerry's like, immediately, yes, I have. All right, I think we've all been in that situation. We say everybody else likes them, but there's just some that feels off to me. Now, if we get that like off feeling, how likely are we to hand somebody money if we're like, I don't know what it is about them, but I just don't like them, Adam. Like, I don't like them. You go, oh, I'm not talking to you. I'm not sharing money with you. I'm not working with you. It's a congruency issue. Now, oftentimes what I see is that we've got a dealership that looks like the Taj Mahal over here. And then we go to that dealer's website and it looks like it was built in 1999 and was never updated ever again. There's this congruency issue. Like, why is it that it doesn't match? Or even it could be opposite. Like this website makes this dealership look like a palace, and you walk in and you're like, okay, you probably should clean the bathroom once every 7 years. Like there's this like congruency issue that can often happen when we're talking about your website and your dealership. But it goes beyond that. Like it goes beyond that. Your website should not just be a brochure for the products that you sell. Like it should not be a brochure. It needs to be an additional salesperson that walks customers through the process. Now, when I start talking about websites, and I'm going to throw this over to Adam in a second because this is his area of expertise. But when I start talking about websites, I always say that there are 3 things that need to be above the fold, which means like when you go to the website, they're the first things on the screen. Number 1 is people want to know, do you have what I want in stock? Okay, that's what's your inventory? People want to know what your inventory is, right? Secondly, most people on dealerships' websites, specifically in the tractor, OPE, trailer space, they want to know, can I get financing? Okay, do you have it? Can I get financing? And then depending on where you are in the country, it might be a little bit different or what your products you sell. The third thing they typically want to know is they want to know either, can I trade in my unit or do you offer delivery? Okay, like those are the things people want to know. We need this website to start the sales process for us. And the beautiful thing about investing money in your website is, unlike your actual sales team, they do not call in sick. They do not start drama with other people in the dealership. And they are pretty consistent, unless we've got like a tech issue that happens. But more often than not, they are consistent. They don't take PTO. They don't start drama. And you don't need an employee handbook for them. Like, sounds pretty good to me, Adam. And so when we think about that, well, what are some of the things that when we think about turning our website into a salesperson that is important from your perspective?
You know, it's funny when you asked me when we talked about this this presentation, you put that one up. We just picked up a customer a couple of months ago. We just put up a new website for them, and they had one fateful thing that was wrong that I hadn't seen in years, but I've seen it a few times now in this space, which is they didn't have a secure website. So every person who tried to connect to that website would get a warning saying, this is not a secure website. So you have to ask yourself, how many potential sales did they lose because it didn't say HTTPS, it just said HTTP. Now, that might be foreign language to some people here, but your vendor should be able to handle that, right? Because any antivirus program or any type of program that you might have on your computer that deals with the security, you know, setting up the security, never mind most browsers, when they see that it's not secure, it'll tell you as you're logging in, don't go here. So I didn't think I was going to have that conversation, but when you asked me that question, we just picked up a customer where that was like the first thing when we saw it was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
is not in a good position, right?
Well,
So
yeah, it's crazy. And you were saying to me too when you were telling me about this is the equivalent of a bouncer standing at the front door of the dealership saying, "Do not enter," right? Like arms
yeah,
crossed, big. I mean, I know probably looks a lot like me, big scary bouncer type of person, but like they're standing there like, "Do not enter, do not come in, do not proceed with caution," and you're like, "I'm gonna go in anyways." Like I'm gonna do it anyways. And so, but we have to change the mentality that this is a salesperson for our dealership, and I think that's a great example. All right, so
yeah. So
the next
go
thing
ahead.
we
Sorry.
have to dive into is clear call to action on the website. So, Adam, I'm going to let you take this and run with it.
All right. So one of the things that we've seen in the automotive space, and we've been finding the same thing here in the agricultural space, is that's what we broadly call the space, is you go to a website and there's so much going on that you can't figure out what to do. And really one of the things that study after study has found is that you have to have a very clear call to action. You want to, okay, if someone's here for finance, you want them to be able to get into, seeing what their finance options are. If someone wants to be needs to service a tractor or something, you got to get to that quickly. If someone wants to buy whatever you're selling, you want to get them there quickly. The more crap that you throw up on your home page, the more distraction you have to lose a potential shopper and have them bounce away and go somewhere else where they'll get served. So CTA clutter, you want to avoid. You want to prioritize your calls to action to know exactly what you're selling and to whom, right? And in some cases, I mean, if you have a vendor that can do this, it's good, is you might want to do what's called there's some software you can use that hotspots when people come in where their mouses move on the page.
Mm.
And that gives you an idea of what they're looking at, what's attracting their eye. If their eye is not going where you need it to go to make a sale, you want to fix that, right? So for us, what we tend to do is we'll test periodically our website designs to make sure that the people are seeing what they're supposed to see. And then the other thing is we tend to advise dealers, let's see how we can simplify as much as possible. I don't know anybody out here that might have an Apple computer, but one of the things that Steve Jobs said that I totally agree with back in the day when he was running Apple was it's the hardest thing you can do is to make the complex simple.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the same thing with your websites. How can you make it really simple in such a way that you understand your shoppers and give them an easy path to go wherever they need to go? If they're doing equipment, if they're doing tractors, if they're doing whatever, they can make it really easy to go where they need to go and then contact you. So for me, simplicity is everything. And, and that's the way we approach doing our websites. And sometimes we get these people, it's like, oh, but you need this. Oh, but no, you don't, because that's distraction. You don't want distraction.
So Adam, I mean, and I agree with you completely. We need clear call to actions that are not overpowering. But tell us a little bit, when we look at carousels on people's websites, what does that do? When we have 76 manufacturer promotions that
Waste
are
of time.
cycling through over and over, and we feel like we owe it to them because they gave us 37 cents a co-op to do it. Like when we have that up there, we're giving them a billboard on the website. Like, what does that actually do in terms of conversion for customers?
Yeah, carousels don't really work that well. The fact of the matter is that most people will click on the first thing they see, and then the other stuff they don't wait around. I mean, let's be honest, everybody, we're self-serving. When we go to a website, we're going there for a purpose. We want to find what we need to find, and we're done, right? Nobody's going to sit there looking at a carousel going through each of the 5 or 6 different things that you have. So as a consequence, what happens, the more stuff you have in your carousel, the other downside is the more you slow down the load time of your website. Now, if you're on desktop, not such a problem. If you're on mobile, that becomes a problem. Why? Because the vast majority of people, 80-85%, hunt by phone, right? I mean, we do work with Hispanic marketing for Spanish language marketing as well. You get into Hispanic community, they're 90 plus easily for hunting by phone. So you got to think seriously about, all right, so if I'm going to be marketing for a particular tractor dealer because he's got co-op fund, then maybe the way to work with that is to have a page dedicated to that particular tractor dealer, and that's where you put their promotions. And if you're doing advertising, I'm not knocking, Mahindra or anything else. But say it's Mahindra money, then what you want to do is direct any of your advertising you might have tied to Mahindra to go to that landing pages, because you get two things, that's two fingers. You get one, you get the landing pages talking to the advertisement that you placed, and two, you're not hurting the speed and load time of your page, especially when it comes to mobile. So you're hitting two positive things that are to your benefit. So we tend to be anti-carousel. We'll compromise sometimes and do like at most 3 in a carousel. But outside of that, we tend to argue back at a dealer. And we would rather get in an argument with a dealer than to just say to a dealer, no problem, and just collect money from them.
Yeah.
Because we know this stuff doesn't work.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. That has given us so much good information when it comes to how we set up calls to action, and then also a passion point for both of us, carousels.
Yeah, I know, that was funny.
All right. So the next thing I want us to talk about for just a minute is SEO, or search engine optimization. Now, some of you may be like, Sarah, it sounds like you're speaking a different language right now. SEO, what the heck are you actually talking about? So search engine optimization is simply the way that, based upon things on your websites, specifically keywords, that your website goes above everybody else's website. The example I like to give of this is, if anybody has been in a place before that they're like, you know what I really would like? Beef jerky. Listen, I'm a Kansas City girl. That happens sometimes. You're like, I want beef jerky. And I want to find the best beef jerky in the world, and I want it delivered to my house. Like, I mean, you do you, okay? Like, do what you're going to do. I don't care what the item is. Maybe you're looking for a fishing pole. I don't care what you're looking for. Best beef jerky in the world. And I put that into Google. Google is not actually going to tell me who has the best beef jerky in the world. Are y'all aware of that? Like, it's not going to be like, Sarah, here is the best beef jerky. What it's going to do is it's going to go through all of the websites on the internet, and it's going to find words that match what I'm searching for, because Google wants to deliver me with something as quickly as possible that keeps me on their website and keeps my attention. Like, right, that's SEO. And so when I type in world's best beef jerky, it's not actually the world's best beef jerky, because we all know it's probably not coming from an online store, right? Like, that's not where it's coming from. And so we've got to be clear on making sure that our websites pop up to the top. The other thing, Adam, that I'm seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing this too, is that as technology continues to develop, it's becoming more and more important that our websites are at a place where they are becoming the very first search result. Because I don't know if you all have a Google, Alexa, Siri. My phone's probably going to beep off here in just a second because I even said those words. But like, you have one of these like virtual assistants in your house, on your phone, wherever it actually might be. And you say that, and you say, tell me where the best tractor dealership is. Tell me about the dealership near me. Tell me about where I can find the best outdoor power equipment. I don't care what you ask. It only gives you one option. Are y'all aware of that? Like, it only gives you, when you say, where's the best dealership near me? It's not going to list off 17 different options and say, figure it out for yourself. No, like, it's going to tell you one thing. And that's search engine optimization. So we have to make sure, as we're going forward, and I would say this is in the next 3 to 5 years, this has to be top priority for us. If we are not going to be number one, we are going to be nothing. And so we've got to develop websites to make sure. And one of the things we're doing with our marketing program is we're writing 4 blogs for our dealers every single month that have keywords in them, so that you pop up to the top of the search results without having to spend a lot of money on it. But Adam, I know, again, you are an expert when it comes to SEO, and it's a big piece of what you guys are doing. So what are some other things dealers can be doing to make sure that they're on the right path with this?
Well, I would, and I just had a conversation with a dealer yesterday, and it was kind of fun because I asked the dealer, I said, look, who are your top 3 competitors? And in your space, it's hard because if this guy was selling mowers, he's got equipment, he's got tractors, and what are you talking about? And I said, well, just give me like where are you losing the most business to? And so I narrowed it down that way. He's like, why are you asking me this? And I said, well, I want to analyze your competitors. I want to find the search engine keywords for which they perform really well.
Yeah.
And you don't. because then what we need to do is focus on those keywords where you're not doing well. So when someone types in a search, blah, 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 that they're popping up ahead of you. So we've got to have a strategy to get you at least coming even to them at a minimum or being better than them.
Mm.
So when it comes to SEO, you know, that's one important thing is your power is always relative to a competitor. Kind of like if you're running from a bear, the only thing that's important is do you run faster than the other person who's running with you?
Right,
Right.
right. You don't want to be slower than the other person because you're going to be eaten by a bear. Nobody wants that.
Exactly. So it's the same principle. And it's not rocket science, guys. It's not rocket science at all. I mean, you know, what we do is we typically explain it to the dealers, talk it through, and we try to get an understanding of what they're doing in their business, what, you know, who their competitors are, so we can analyze them relative to their competitors and start laying out a plan to have them distance themselves relative to their competitors.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's not complicated, but one thing that we find is a lot of times companies will spend a lot of time selling SEM, search engine marketing, and you know, that's paid advertising, blah, 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 blah. And you know, I had a dealer a couple of weeks ago where I found that one of the terms they were paying for was their company name. And I said, I'm not trying to cause trouble, but whoever you're paying for your advertising, we weren't doing advertising for them. I wasn't even pitching advertising to them. I just said, when you have to pay for your name, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Right? So your SEO should be able to elevate your name. Your SEO should be able to make it so that organically, when someone types something in related to your name, you're popping up. You shouldn't have to pay for that. So a good strategy for marketing combines a good SEO plan, which is usually a lot less expensive than, you know, paid advertising, coupled with your paid advertising. And you'll save money on your paid advertising if you're paying attention to SEO. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly where we need to go. All right, so the next and last piece of our conversation, it's hard to believe we're already at the last piece of our conversation because time flies when we're having fun. At least I'm having fun. I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm having a good time. All right, so the last piece of this conversation has to do with follow-up and leads, okay? So I want you in the chat to tell me when a lead comes in, what happens? Now, be honest, okay? When a lead comes in from your website or from your manufacturer or from anybody, what happens? Be honest with me and put it in the chat. We are friends at this point. There's going to be no judgment here. I just want to know what actually happens. So most dealerships that we've worked with, this has been a pain point, okay? We get, first off, what happens is that there's like 17 different portals that these go into, right? Like there's 17 different portals. And I want to be clear on something. The marketing team's job is to produce the leads. And then it's the sales team's job to close the leads, okay? Your job on the marketing side is to collect the leads, and then the sales team's job is to close the leads. But there often becomes this disconnect where we have so many different portals where leads are coming in. So the manufacturer has a different portal. The website goes to a different portal. As y'all know, there's like 400 different things happening at any given moment. And so we get these leads in, and oftentimes nobody touches them. And it looks like everybody on here has at least a decent strategy in place in order to deal with the leads. But I would say you're probably the exception, not really the rule. And so we have all these leads come in of people who are interested in what we are selling. And we're like it's the same thing that happens when you get your parts order in. Because the parts order, it comes in at the most inopportune every time. And everybody's like, don't look at it. If I look at the pallet with the parts on it, I have to put it away. So they do like this weird, like, parts inventory dance where they try not to look at it and try not to touch it. The same thing happens with leads. Oftentimes from your website or from online situations where like they get them in and they're like, I know I should deal with it. I really know I should deal with it, but I'm just not going to touch it. I'm going to let somebody else deal with it. And it causes this massive ripple effect. This is why oftentimes in OPE, tractors, trailers, like all of these spaces, that our lead follow-up scores are so poor. It's number one because we don't actually have a CRM to keep the leads in. Y'all, we need CRMs, okay? And number two, we don't have a process to deal with it. And again, oftentimes, depending on the size of your dealership, maybe you are the owner and the number one salesperson. I see you. And you go, oh my God, Sarah, I have these leads now that I need to follow up on, but I'm just sitting over here trying to submit my taxes to, or I'm just sitting over here trying to do this. And I get the complexity of that, but we have to have a process in order to keep track of the leads. The number one metric we look at when we're working with dealers in our marketing program is a metric we call cost per lead. We want to know how much it costs for every lead that we generate. And every single month, we send every dealer in our program a thing that says your cost per lead was X amount of dollars. Now, when you start looking at numbers like that, Adam, and you go, oh my God, I had 50 leads and they each cost me, I don't know, $100 for easy math, right? And nobody followed up on those 50 leads. I only say that because that happened this morning. They didn't follow up on 50 leads that we had sent them over the last week to week and a half. And you go, oh my God, I just wasted $5,000 on people who were interested in me, but I just didn't have a process to deal with it. We have to make sure we've got that in place in order to move us forward. So Adam, I know we are almost out of time. Clearly we are long-winded over here, but I want you, is there anything else when we talk about lead capture and follow up on leads that you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it all, Sarah. I mean, guys, when you get a lead that comes in, that's a potential gold mine. And you got to follow up as quickly as possible and listen really closely to what they're saying. Again, everybody who's on this call is probably either a principal in their dealership or an owner. So to be in that position already, you know the whole concept of listening to a sales call and be able to respond to what it is. You also know that if you think about it this way, in the digital world, and then you take it in the human world, if you had someone walk into your dealership and say to you directly, hey, I want to buy a Coyote tractor, and you ignore them, and they, hey, I want to buy a Coyote tractor, you ignore them again, they're going to go down the street,
Yeah.
right? So it's the same principle. If you get an email, respond quickly. If you get a chat, respond quickly. You get a call, well, then you capture it. You want to respond quickly. It's not rocket science. And then if you're overwhelmed, that's where you do talk to your marketer and say, look, can we slow it down a little bit? I'm getting too much. Too much. Getting a lot is good, but it's not good if you can't respond. So it might be you ratchet back a little bit, and you get it to sort of, because if you're capturing leads, fantastic. But if you're getting 50 leads a day, you can't handle that. Maybe 10 leads a day you could do, so cut it back. You're advertising, so you're getting 10 leads a day, and then you improve as you get stronger. That's my take on it, Sarah.
I'm with you completely. So as we wrap up here, we had a handful of questions come through. Yeah, we are clearly just about out of time, but I want to answer one really quick question before we leave. And I'm answering this because this is a question I get regularly, Adam. But the question that came through was, how much should I actually be spending on marketing? Okay. Okay. And it's a big question. Now, if you want to dive into this specifically with me, please scan on my calendar, scan the link, get on my calendar. Let's talk about it. But there's a rule of thumb that we look at. Now, this is assuming that we're getting 50% co-op. I just want to put that out there. This is assuming 50% co-op on all of our marketing dollars. But if you've been in business for less than 5 years or have brought on a new major line in the last 5 years, I want 5% of your gross revenue going to marketing. And that's assuming 50% of it is covered by co-op. If you've been in business for more than 5 years, like surprise, happy birthday, 5 years, or you've not brought on a new major manufacturer in the last 5 years, 2.5% is that target. And again, that's assuming that you're getting 50% co-op. So if you're not, then I would have that number be 2.5 and 1.5 are the numbers I would look at. So keep that in mind when we're talking about budget. All right. And Adam, somebody asked, I'm ready to switch to a new website provider. How do I get in contact with you?
I'm looking at the screen right there. Adam.dennis@surgemetrics.com is perfectly fine. And then I can talk it through with you.
All right. Very good. Well, again, if you've got other questions, scan our QR codes, get on our calendars. Let's talk about your specific situation. But y'all, I know nobody started this business because this is what they love to do. And there's all of these things all the time that are taking your attention, all these new things. Lean on the people like us who spend our time and energy working in this world all the time to make your life easier. All right, guys, thank you all so much for being with us, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.